All right. Hey, Vikings fans, welcome in to the Skol Hop. My name's Evan.
And I'm Austin.
And we're just a couple of dudes from Iowa. We like drinking beer, and we like talking about the Vikings.
We do.
Skol, my friend. What are we drinking today?
Tonight, Evan, you were the bringer of the beer tonight. We have Kinship's Amber Lager.
Out of Waukee, Iowa, right?
Tall boys, yep. Out of, where's it from? Brewed and packaged in Waukee, Iowa.
That's right, yep.
And we've had a little bit so far. We've had a few drinks. And Amber, that's one of your favorites, right?
Yes, anything like Oktoberfest, Amber, anything in that kind of category of beer is definitely up my alley. We had your kind of favorite category.
Yeah.
IPA.
Oh, yeah. Last week.
Mm-hmm.
That hazy IPA.
I like that too.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick, this is where I'm headed. So.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I love a good amber as well. I really have only met a couple of beers I didn't like, and those were like, I don't know, just spicy.
Really weird, out there kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
This one's hitting the spot so far.
That was going to be my question. Is it doing good for you? It's doing good for me.
Oh yeah.
And at 4.7%, this is a crushable beer.
It is delightful.
So good job, Kinship. We will talk about it a little bit more after we've had some more and had some more good conversation.
You know what else is crushable or delightful or whatever other adjective we want to use?
Good adjective. Yeah.
That would be the Vikings winning against the 49ers on Monday Night Football.
Monday Night Football. It is officially Kirktober, okay? Kirk Cousins. That may have been his best game as a Viking. I mean,
I would argue as such, yes.
It's up there. I don't know. He was playing out of his mind. And on top of that, there weren't really any drops. He didn't get sacked at all. Just didn't get sacked a bunch. He didn't get sacked at all.
Offensive line played great.
Oh my gosh. And even down to the one play towards the end of the game where Kirk just kind of disappeared in a crumbling pocket. And I was like, oh, great. I even threw my hands up. Like, oh, there's a sack. First one all game. And then out of nowhere, the ball's thrown. And I think, who caught it? Was that a Powell catch? I don't remember.
It might have been.
Oh my goodness. It was a fun game.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was the most fun I've had watching the Vikes this season.
We've got a good little text thread going on from that game that would be fun to look back on sometime. But yeah, a lot of great things. I mean, Kirk obviously played well. The offense played well. I'd say the defense played well also.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there weren't too many frustrating times. The one McCaffrey touchdown, you knew McCaffrey was going to get his. You knew he was going to be a thorn in the side at some point, but really only one time. I mean, it was the only time that swing pass.
He scored twice, didn't he?
Yeah, but the one pass he caught was that 35-yard touchdown.
And that was on a 3-play drive. Mm-hmm. Like they got the ball and they just went boom, boom, boom down the field and they scored, right?
Yeah, I forget what the score was after that touchdown.
I think that got him up to 14 or maybe 17. Okay. It was his second touchdown.
And
his first one was a longer drive, and they were at the one, and they kind of pushed him in.
Yeah. Was that McCaffrey? Did he have two?
I think McCaffrey had two.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that pass that he caught for a touchdown, I think that made it so the Niners were only down by 5 or something at that point. And you know me, I'm the pessimist. I was thinking, all right, here's how it is. Here's how we lose this week. But they didn't lose.
I saved this tweet because I figured this would come up. And so I always bookmark these things and I never look back on them. But I don't even know who this guy is. WX account. Hate these games. Start off pretty much believing Vikings will lose. Mm-hmm. Then go to thinking, oh, man, we have a chance. Only to remember later in the game that you still cheer for the Vikings for some odd reason.
Yep.
That pretty accurately sums up what it's like to be a Vikings fan. But the good news for us and for WX account, whoever you are, is that the Vikings came out on top. And we kind of flipped the script from a typical Vikings game that way.
Yep.
So that's the good news.
Yep. I don't know what the money line was at kickoff, but I think it opened up that the Vikings were underdogs by 7.5 points, and it fluctuated around that 6-point spread throughout the week. I think at one point they were, underdogs by like 6 points. But still, almost a full touchdown, and they came out and won. Like, against arguably the best team in the NFL right now. Maybe the last two games for them, they're not really saying that anymore.
One of the best teams in the NFL.
There have been points this season where it just looked like, who could possibly dream of beating the 49ers this year? I probably said that on this podcast. Like, there's no way. There's no way the Vikings are going to beat them. I probably said it last week. There's no way.
Well, and we'll get into this later, but like even looking at our predictions, you had predicted that they would win, which I think is interesting.
This was our preseason
This was preseason picks, yeah. But everybody in my family predicted that we would lose, including myself.
And everyone in my family predicted a win.
So I don't know. Maybe your family's onto something.
I don't know. I'll still go back to my daughter, who predicted a 12-5 season. How crazy would that be if she ended up being right? We're still in that territory.
And we sure are.
I don't think it's going to happen, but
anything's possible. Anything is possible.
Yep. But I did say 10-7, so that's probably still realistic.
Oh, I think an above 500, and I think a wild card appearance is still feasible.
You're within that realm. I mean, only down 2 games to the Lions in the division, and then there's not a ton of world beaters in the league right now. I mean, got some good juggernauts, but not a lot of them.
I looked at it today, not that it matters because it's week 7, or the end of week 7. We're going into week 8. But if the playoffs were to start today, guess where the Vikings are?
Are they the 8th seed?
They are the 8th seed. I mean, we're 1 game out.
No, that's in. That's the 3rd wild card spot is the 8th seed.
I thought it was just 7 teams that made it in.
No. Wait, you might be right.
The first team,
4 division. Yeah, you're right.
First team gets the bye.
Yeah. Well, there's 4 division winners and then 3 wild card spots. So
yes,
7 seeds. Yeah.
7 total.
You're right. All
so
right.
we're 1 game out, but that's not a bad place to be after going 0-3 and 1-4 to start the season.
Yeah. And I saw something again. I didn't save it. I don't know who tweeted it. But mathematically, the Vikings right now, this early in the season, it's still pretty early. We haven't even hit the halfway point. They control their own destiny for the division. Like, they are still mathematically very much in the division conversation. I don't think that's super realistic, but it's not outside of the realm of possibility.
Well, and the Vikings don't play the Lions until week 16 and week 18.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe there are some script writers out there who are more creative-minded than we are and are planning these things out to, like, okay, we're going to put these 2 teams up against each other twice in the last 3 weeks of the season.
Yep. And the Vikings have 3 division games to finish out the
Lions,
season.
Packers, Lions.
Yeah. 2 of those being at home. So those could be big games, and I feel like we're lucky to be able to say that those could be big games at this point. I mean, we're really close to talking about how many players we're going to trade away and what Caleb Williams looks like in the draft. I mean, that's still not outside of the realm of possibility later on in the season, but just a week ago, we were that close to start talking about trading everybody.
Very true. I saw a hilarious tweet today that also said that Caleb Williams is now counter-tanking to avoid going to the Broncos or the Bears.
Well, I mean, realistically, he doesn't have to declare. I mean, he could not declare. Yep. And, I mean, the college kids have a little bit of say in it. Even if he does declare, he could just decline to sign and then sit out a whole season. I don't think anybody wants to do that, but it's a card in his hand that he could do. I don't think that'll happen, regardless of who gets the first pick and if he is the first pick, like everybody thinks he will be. I think he's going to be playing in the NFL next year for the first overall picking team.
We got to go back to this 49ers game now, because there were so many good things that happened. What was your favorite play from the game?
I mean, favorite play? Well, it might be cliche, but that Jordan Addison end of the half touchdown, which also was followed by, I've been singing Greg Joseph's freight. I can't talk tonight. I'm so excited, and this 4.7er is hitting me hard. I have been singing the kicker's praises this year. He's been lights out.
He's been very consistent.
And then he misses kicks this game. Thank the Lord. It didn't be the difference maker, but it could have been. I mean, that extra point that he missed really looked like it could have ended up being a losing extra point for us.
And not to focus on the negatives, but he drills a 54-yarder.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And then misses a 50-yarder.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. What are we doing here?
Yeah. But anyways, back on positivity.
Yes.
Because I am Mr. Positive, right?
Always.
That Addison touchdown, that seemed like it was just a not again situation.
Oh, yeah.
After his first, the first play where it was thrown to him, or the second play, I guess, where it was thrown to him, and he just got outbeat for that ball. And then later on in that half, against the same guy, right? It was Ward both times, right?
Travarius Ward.
Yeah, he was not going to get beat again.
And he that first interception, third play of the game or whatever it was, and Vikings fans everywhere are going, not again.
Yep, here it is. It's already over.
From that moment on, Travarius Ward got embarrassed.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he just looked terrible. And that Jordan Addison rip away 60-yard touchdown at the end of the first half was kind of the, like, punctuating moment of the game, I think, for Travarius Ward. Of course, for the Vikings. I mean, that would be my top play, too.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, you look back on that and you look at Travarius Ward and how he performed the rest of the game, and it was ugly for him.
He kind of got bullied a little bit.
Yeah, and I think he had at least one pass interference or like illegal contact or something called on him. Just, I think, sheerly out of frustration because he was performing so badly. Was it him? Did he have the pass interference on Jordan Addison in the end zone that would have been Jordan's third touchdown of the game?
I don't remember. I remember the play you're talking about, but I don't remember if it was him.
It was kind of in the left corner of the end zone, and he was kind of like grabbing onto him. And I can't. We'd have to go back and look. But anyways, regardless of that was him or not, I think he just had a really tough game after that. And that catch, that one moment where Jordan Addison's like you said, nope, not again.
Not again.
Rips the ball away from him. I saw something else. I keep coming back to Twitter. I spent a lot of time on Twitter today.
Me too.
But somebody was like, that's a fumble recovery and an interception and a catch or something.
Yeah, I
like
think
that.
I want to say that on the Manning cast, they said that. It was like, that's not just a catch. That should be an interception, fumble, and a recovery for a touchdown, which, I mean, it won't go that way in the stat book, but that's really an accurate description of the play.
Yeah, for sure. Because when it first happened, as it was developing, I just threw my hands up like, another interception. Come on. You got to be kidding me. And then my wife was sitting right next to me, and I go, no, he caught the ball. And she's like, what? And she got all excited. She was reading a book, and she's just like, what happened? And I'm like, he just scored a touchdown, and it looked like the other guy picked it off. It was amazing.
That was awesome. Hands down, my favorite play. But there were still some other. Cam Bynum had two, maybe even three other plays of the game worthy plays.
Well, I mean, he had two picks within 5 minutes of each other.
A really game-defining picks.
And they really put the game away. Even that first pick was like, okay, we could do this. And then, of course, the second pick with 10 seconds
Well, that was the
left to go.
sealer. I mean, that was the one that put the nail in the coffin. I think I even texted you after the first pick and said, oh, there's the first nail in the coffin.
You did, yeah.
And then the Vikings didn't do a whole lot with that drive, but they ate some clock, which is good. But then, I mean, to come out and with the Niners starting to move a little bit, and it looked like, oh, here we go again. The one nice thing is the Niners needed a touchdown on that drive. They were down by 5. They couldn't have gotten 50 yards and kicked a field goal. They had to get the touchdown. So there's a little bit more hope than I would have had any other time, but man, I literally fell to the ground when Cam got that second interception. It was, that was so much fun. That game was so much fun to watch.
I was excited as well, and I was shouting, movie, and my wife was like, what? I'm like, you got to know Cam Bynum.
Yeah.
That's just what he does. And then she was watching him celebrate, and she's like, wow, that guy's kind of crazy. I'm like, in a good way.
Yep. Well, and then to his credit too, I mean, I guess I don't know who wouldn't do this, but right after the game, he had a post-game interview, I think, with Pelissero, and he was talking up his his, I don't know if it's a charity or foundation or whatever, it does a lot with the Philippines. Then he said his wife,
Yeah, I saw that.
she's
kind of stuck in the Philippines right now.
Can't get a visa for the U.S.
Yeah.
Hopefully that they can get something to figure out on that. He tweeted about it, and I saw the NFLPA tweeted back at him. I was like, hey, we sent you a DM. Like, let us talk back to us.
Yeah. Yep.
So hopefully they get that figured out. I didn't even know that. I wasn't
either.
aware that he had any affiliation with the Philippines at all. But
Well, yeah, I Googled it
yeah,
while we were sitting there because my wife was like, what is he got around his shoulders? And I'm like, I don't know. I've seen him with that before, and I should know this, but I don't. And I looked it up, and it's the flag of the Philippines.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that was a cool moment, though.
Really cool moment.
And cool that, one, he played so well and has been playing well and was the one that really sealed the deal. And two, that he's using that platform for
Which, like I said,
change.
I don't know who wouldn't, but yeah, and it's a good platform. He's not trying to like win a game and then say, hey, buy my energy drink. It's, hey, here's the good that me and my family are putting out in the world. It is a good. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. So, any other highlights from the game that you wanted to touch on?
I mean, I don't think it could be understated how good the defense did. I know McCaffrey, he's injured, and maybe it's really bad, but he still had some good plays. But even against that, this defense has not been able to get off the field. They've had a terrible run defense all season. I think this might be the first game where the Vikings they won the time of possession game. Like, yeah. I don't know. It should just be very well stated. Maybe this whole Brian Flores defense was difficult to kind of fine tune and understand, and maybe there was some unlucky plays in there, but I don't know. When you go up against one of the best teams in the league and your defense looks like that after being poor the whole season, it seems like there's some light at the end of the tunnel. So hopefully they figured some stuff out and they didn't just get lucky. But yeah, it can't be understated.
I noticed something, and I pay way more attention to offense than I do defense, and I think that's just a natural byproduct of the way that the NFL has set up their league and the rules and things like that. But I noticed upon reflecting on the game, the role of the linebacker seems to be much different in Brian Flores' defense than it did in previous years. I feel like the Vikings have always been a very linebacker heavy group, and they've relied on leadership from the linebacker position. And it's not to say that our linebackers aren't playing well or that they're not leading, but it seems like there's a heavy emphasis on the line and the secondary now, and linebackers are not as much of an emphasis in Brian Flores' system. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. And I think to even go a little bit deeper, I think the safety position is extremely important in Flores' defense. Like, I think, what are there, 6 safeties on the 53-man roster, which is kind of crazy. And Lewis Seen apparently isn't good enough to touch the field. But when Cam Bynum and Josh Metellus and obviously Harrison Smith are all in there, I think it was Bynum and Smith combining for that McCaffrey fumble, which is awesome. But they're in there, they're making plays, and they're being a focal point of the defense. I think that safety position, it's kind of like the way Zimmer would have some good double A gap blitzes with the defensive linemen. I think Flores has some unique things he does with safeties.
Well, and there are times where he just throws everything in the kitchen sink at the line. Like, it's just, there's nobody back there. Yeah. There's maybe one high safety that's there for in case something goes wrong, but everybody else, 10 guys are on the line going after the quarterback.
Yeah, and frequently, I mean, Harrison Smith, he's frequently one of those guys that are jumping in, and every play he at least makes it look like he's going to blitz and then not, and then actually blitz. He's really versatile, and it's cool to see, especially at this point of his career, that he's such a, Swiss Army knife and such a tool in the defense.
But I definitely agree with you. It's it can't be understated how well the defense is starting to play. And I think I agree with you that I think things are starting to click now with Flores and how his defense fits into the Kevin O'Connell system. And I think Kevin O'Connell said it. I watched the post-game speech in the locker room, and he emphasized complementary football. And I felt like this was probably the most complete game that we've seen the Vikings play.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
All season.
Without a doubt. And I don't want to go too crazy and say, the Vikings, they made it. They're going to go undefeated the rest of the season, Super Bowl homeboy. I don't want to say that because it's one game. I mean, and yeah, the Niners, they weren't full strength, McCaffrey played the whole game. I think at one point late in the fourth quarter, the announcers said he hasn't missed an offensive snap. So I don't know if that held true the rest of the game, but for a lot of it, he was in there the whole time. Trent Williams, he didn't play, did he?
Nope.
Yeah, that's huge.
Williams and Deebo Samuel were out.
Yeah, that's huge. There's no, we can't talk about this game without mentioning that because those are, three of their best players, and two of them were out and one wasn't 100%. But on the other side of the coin, one of the best players in the league was in street clothes 2 nights ago, JJ. And how awesome was that to see, at least publicly, his reactions the whole game. After the game, he put the chain on Kirk's neck. He was so happy. And it was so happy. He was cheering with us, kind of like the reverse Adam Thielen. He cheered with us growing up as Vikings fans, but JJ, he cheered with us after being a Viking and, watching the game.
And I think that whole situation is really telling of the relationship between Kirk and JJ.
Oh my gosh.
And I think both of them, because both of them are in a contract year, so to speak. JJ coming off of his rookie contract and Kirk is at the end of his contract at the end of the season. Like, I think both of them feel strongly that they don't want to play without each other. And Kirk has said, and he's been very open, I want to finish my career here in Minnesota. I think he likes not just playing for a team like the Vikings, but I think he likes the community. I think he likes the atmosphere for his family. I think it's a good fit for him. And JJ has not said this explicitly, but I think he's implied that I don't want anybody else but Kirk to be throwing the ball to me.
I mean, it's only been good for him.
Yeah. So, you got to think that Kwesi is looking long and hard at how to make both of those guys happy and continue to move this team forward without, cutting everybody else and, starting over.
Yeah. And I obviously we're just some dudes in Iowa, or a couple of dudes in Iowa, so we don't know anything like officially. But if you told me JJ was kind of waiting to sign to see what the quarterback position is going to look like for the Vikings next year, because JJ, he's a Viking next season. Like, they've already picked up his 5th year option. Yep. He is a Viking next season, unless he retires or refuses to play, which he's never done anything like that, like sit out and hold out or anything like that. So far we have no reason to believe he would ever do that. But I mean, for his benefit, I could see if he was kind of sitting and waiting to see, one, if Kirk's back, I think he'd be happy about that. Everything he's done has made it seem like he'd be really happy about that. 2, maybe he'd also be happy if the Vikings had some other stability at the quarterback position. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if that was his motivation. Because you got to think the Vikings have offered him a lucrative contract at this point. And maybe it's on him saying, let's just sit and wait and see what's best for this. Because he even said it. He is a player doing things that no other player has done before. So you got to kind of manage your own, get yours first, which I respect that. Every one of these players should get every single dime they can, but also he has a chance to be great, like Randy great. And you got to take care of that too. So hopefully, if you had to make the decision right now, you're signing Kirk for at least 1 to 2 to 3 more seasons. they don't have to make that decision right now, but that's what they would do. That's at least attempt to do right now. And then I think that next domino would fall with JJ signing probably the biggest non-quarterback contract in NFL history when he signs it.
Yeah, that would be a day.
Yeah.
That would be a day. I looked at this today because I guess I didn't really follow Kirk until he came to the Vikings. At the end of this season, he'll have played as many seasons as a Viking as he will have as a Redskin.
That's pretty cool.
/ Commander. So yeah, 6 years in Washington. At the end of this season, he'll have completed 6 years in Minnesota. And his first 2 years in Washington, he sat behind RG3.
Yeah.
So I think he only started a handful of games between his first 2 seasons and didn't become the true starter until his 3rd season in Washington. And I think from that point on, he's missed 1 game.
That's crazy. Is that the COVID game?
The COVID game.
That's such BS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's dumb is what it is.
I've initially had my ups and downs about Kirk, the first 1 or 2 seasons. But the switch flipped, and I have been a Kirk guy for a while now. And all he's done this season is prove that he belongs on the team. Give him all the money. He is playing well enough as a quarterback needs to get where you want to go, and that's a Super Bowl. I'm not saying that's what he's going to do, but he's doing it. I mean, he leads the league. I think he's second in yards passing. He's either second or first or tied for first in touchdown passes.
He's first in touchdown passes.
Yeah, I don't know where he sits interception-wise, but even the interception he had against the Niners, yeah, he could have thrown a better ball, but it was contested, and it wasn't 100% his fault.
He just shouldn't have thrown that pass in the first place.
But that was, probably the only terrible
bad play
he had. There was one touchdown, attempted touchdown pass to Addison in the first half, I think.
Was that where we stalled out at the goal line and we ended up kicking?
It was one of the times, yeah. I think it was the first time that they stalled out within the 5. And he had Addison, he had run himself wide open, but Kirk basically had to throw 3/4 of the length or the width of the field across his body. And Addison, he dove, and it wasn't too far off, but it was a missed throw. But those are probably the 2 biggest bad plays Kirk had all game. And outside of that, MVP Kirk, Kirk O'Chains, that.
He shined. Yes. And I think he proved again, and he's proven this before and people forget, he can play well in primetime.
Yeah, it's a narrative, and he could play his next primetime games like John Elway, and then the 11th primetime game just throw 3 interceptions, and there's that narrative again.
Right. He sucks in primetime. He's terrible. Whatever. Yeah. He's quoted saying, if my critics saw me walk on water, they'd say that,
I forget. They'd say it was frozen or something. It's a quote from somebody else. It was in the quarterback show.
Yeah.
It was, oh, man.
Dang it.
What a fail on our
I
part.
read this recently, too, within the last couple hours, and I can't remember what it is. Oh, well.
We're going to look it up.
If you know what it is and you're listening, let us know.
Let us know.
We can't remember all the things. I think we should turn the corner. I think we should look at kind of where we thought we would be, where we are. So we did a schedule pick'em episode all the way back before the season started, back in August. And we thought it would be fun for you and your wife and your kids to make picks, and then me and my wife and my kids to make picks. And we also decided to do a coin flip and let the coin decide. And so just to kind of run across the line, starting with the coin flip where everybody thought we would be through 7 games, the coin predicted we would be 6-1. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would have been crazy. Yeah, if you remember, the coin flip didn't have our first loss until against the Bears.
That's right.
In week 6. So
yeah. Anyways, you're one of the closest. You're one of the closest.
Yeah.
At 4-3.
Yep. Just one game off. I didn't pick the right ones, but
no, nobody did. Your wife was 5-2. Your kids were also 4-3. I was 4-3. My wife 4-3, and my kids actually predicted our record to date at 3-4. They picked the wrong games.
Yeah.
The only game they picked right was the loss against the Chargers.
Ah, okay.
Everything else they picked incorrectly, but they still have the right record, so they're on to something maybe.
Yeah.
My kids picked the worst record for the Vikings at the end of the season at 9-8. And then you and my wife picked 10-7 record overall.
Mm-hmm.
Your wife was a little more optimistic at 11-6, and then your kids and myself picked a 12-5 record, which is still within the realm of possibility.
It is. I don't think it'll happen, but I also didn't think the Vikings would beat the Niners a couple nights ago, so you never know. The reality is they can't be worse than what? 3-14 at this point.
Yep.
So that would be a terrible season, but you got to think they're going to win more than.
So, yeah, with that in mind, here's the deal: we have 5 games before the bye week.
Mm-hmm.
And let's run down those games really quick. So we'll talk about the Packers game coming up, but we play at Lambeau against the Packers this next week. Then we go to Atlanta. Then we have the Saints at home, at Broncos, Bears at home before the Week 13 bye. So here's what I want to know. This schedule pick'em aside, now that we've seen the Vikings through 7 games, we kind of know what we've got. We've seen the really good and the really bad.
Mm-hmm.
In the next 5 games, where do we end up record-wise going into the bye week?
Man. Okay. So obviously, admittedly, we would both say we're looking at this through purple-colored glasses right now. You just come off beating one of the best teams in the league. You looked great. No real huge weaknesses. And that's all with, 2 players on injured reserve? 3? You got JJ, Ezra Cleveland. Oh, Marcus Davenport.
Mm-hmm.
A few injuries to some playing players. All that being said, I think you go to Lambeau, and you very well can win. Granted, the Packers, I think they narrowly lost. They didn't play this previous week, right? They were on bye. But their last game, they lost at the end of the game. So they've had some time to figure it out and game plan and rest up. And get ready for the Vikings. But I still think you've got this momentum. You're playing Creed in the locker room. I think you're going to Lambeau and you're winning. The Falcons, that can be tricky. They've been a trickier team. And that's at Atlanta, second straight away game. My gut says you're going to beat the Falcons, but I'm less confident about that as I am about the Packers. The Saints have been weird this year. Some weeks they looked great against the Patriots, but maybe that's just the Patriots being terrible. I don't know, but that's at home. Preseason, I predicted this to be a win. I don't know. That's a toss-up for me. I don't know. I think you win it. I think they win it at this point. Like, it's hard to picture them losing right now. Like, you're not trading away players, probably. You just played great. I think that Broncos game can be tricky. That's probably the trickiest of the bunch.
Because playing at altitude?
I mean, you're going to Denver. I think altitude might be a little bit of a factor, but maybe it's mostly like a media factor. Like, the balls are being thrown way farther, and it probably is a little bit of a factor, but not like if it was that big, then the Broncos would win every game at home. I don't know, though.
The Broncos aren't good. I mean, they are arguably... I mean, at the bottom of the league, it's the Broncos, the Bears, and the Panthers.
I mean, then it's hard to say you lose against the Broncos or the Bears, especially that Bears game being at home. But did I just predict undefeated all the way out through through the bye.
I think you did. I think
I
you
did.
said 5-0, which would put us at 8-4.
I think if you're going to lose any of them, it'd be
Falcons or Saints?
Yeah, I think it's the Falcons or Saints. Other than that, outside of like a weird fluke or crazy injury, you're not losing. Because I'm just looking at the scores so far this season. Their worst loss, they lost by 3 to the Bucks, by 8 to the Eagles. Are these all still one-score games?
They are, indeed.
All of the losses. I think the only non-one-score... Oh, even the Panthers win was a one-score game, 21-13. Man.
But that's typical of the NFL. I mean, that's...
Well, especially the Vikings. Has KOC had a game that wasn't a one-score... Well, okay. He's definitely had every single
Dallas.
One of his wins have been a one-score game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even the blowouts to like Dallas and Philly.
Well, in the Phillies, that wasn't necessarily a blowout. I think it was 24-7. So, yes, a beatdown, but not like...
Yeah.
It wasn't the Cowboys
You were talking about last year's Philly game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and this year...
This year, we kept it close.
Yeah, it was 28-34.
Still a one-score game.
So, I think that trend is going to keep going, unless... Because even we've been going nuts about this game against the Niners, and they still didn't win by a full touchdown.
Right.
Like, it was still a 5-point game. So you still looked your best, granted, against one of the best, and you had a close win. I don't know. I'm just going to say it. They're going to win every game until the bye. There it is. That's my Austin stamp of approval.
I'm not going to get very specific. I'm just going to say that we will be above 500 going into the bye week.
So that's 3 more wins, at least?
Yeah. So, and I think considering the 0-3 start.
Well, that would be 4 more wins to be above 500 total?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So we lose one. We drop one of those games. But still, going into the bye week, week 13, to be above 500.
Oh, that'd be huge.
That's a good place to be.
Yeah, especially depending on what the rest of the division does. I mean, the Lions can always lion. They lioned last week, so... Yep,
that's right. Here's another question for you, because that week 13 bye, I think, is very, very interesting. One, it's interesting because of how late it is in the season. I think it's going to be very beneficial just from a health perspective of the whole roster. But 2, it comes at a time where the Vikings may opt, and Kevin O'Connell and the training staff may opt to hold JJ out until after that bye week. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, they could. So I'm not too knowledgeable about the rules. I know on injured reserve,
4 weeks, right?
It's a minimum 4 weeks. And I know there's at some point they have to open up like a practice window, like a 21-day practice window. But I don't know when that has to happen. Because like Longwu, he started the season on IR, and he just came back for the Niners game, right? That was his first game back. So I'm not sure on how all those rules go, but I do know at some point, if you don't activate him, then it turns into like a season-long injured reserve. I think, but now I'm thinking about like Aaron Rodgers and how he's saying like, oh, I could come back, and if that wasn't even rule-wise possible, he wouldn't be saying that, right? Like, so I don't know. You're probably onto something there, depending on how bad that injury is, which I haven't really heard anything about it. I think like a few days later, I saw something on Twitter that JJ was quote unquote sprinting.
I think that was a load of garbage.
Yeah.
I think that Twitter account, because I think I saw the same exact tweet, and I think they just tweet garbage stuff out. Yeah. Okay. Just to get likes and whatever.
Sure. Well, I mean,
not accurate at all.
Okay. So I don't know if they're playing really well and there's any question, I say for the sake of potential postseason success, you let him get to 100%. Now, if they're borderline and it's still kind of questionable, but we kind of need him, then maybe push him a little bit further. But also, if Addison is playing like his breakout game on Monday Night Football, let him cook too. Like, let him go, see how far Addison can take us, and see if he can turn into a Rookie of the Year candidate.
The earliest I think he can come back, if the 4 games are enough for him to recover, would be week 10 against the Saints.
Yeah,
right?
I believe that's right, because I think
he was activated or deactivated, to the IR after the Chiefs game. So he is now sat out from the Bears game and the Niners, and he'll have to sit out Packers, Falcons. He could come back at home against the Saints.
he could. And yeah, as things sit right now, I'm of the mindset of, if, that Saints game comes around and he's 90%, let him sit. Let him get back to 100. Especially if you've won 2 games, the Packers and Falcons game. You got a little bit of a momentum, hopefully a little bit of a cushion, depending on how the Lions are doing. You're only 2 games away from the Lions. I don't know. They've won both games without him. Granted, that's against the Bears and, a season-altering game against the Niners. But Addison's doing well. The rest of the receivers are doing well, too. I mean, TJ seemed to figure out how to catch a ball again against the Niners.
Yeah, he sure did.
That was getting frustrating. Brandon Powell, all of a sudden, is a guy that we're talking about.
Yeah, where did he come from?
I don't know. Like, he was with the Rams before this season. I think he was signed before even training camp started. But when they signed him, he wore number 19. And I remember thinking, like, get that number off that. He's not even going to make the team. Get that number off that guy. And it's really nice that he switched his number once the 53-man rosters were set and the season started. But he made the team, and he's produced. Granted, his biggest production was that fumble after that really good punt return. Against the Eagles.
Probably.
But yeah, he made some plays against the Niners. I spoke wrong. That fumble wasn't his biggest production. He played really well against the Niners. KJ, he's seeming to, I don't know, he seems like he's playing mad, but like, he's been a little bit of up and down. On Monday, he was up when he needed to be.
Yeah, he caught a couple of less than great throws from Kirk. There was one in the dirt that he got his hands under.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a catch.
Oh, there was one with Kirk. Yeah, the pocket was collapsing. Out of nowhere, a defender started chasing him, and Kirk, like, in a split second, had to realize he was being chased, decide not to run, and just, boot the ball out. And KJ, to his credit, caught it, and it wasn't a great ball. It was fast. It was out of nowhere, and KJ caught it, and I think it was for a first down.
Yeah, I remember that play, and I think you're right. So, yeah, the great news for the Vikings and for Kirk is there are so many weapons that Kirk has, especially when JJ comes back.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, Jordan Addison is really developed and has kind of had his little coming out party. Just go for it. You got it.
Right, Skol.
Skol.
Oh, Skol. There it is.
And KJ is still a really good number 3 guy, I would say.
There's something to that, too. While we're talking about KJ real quick, I was listening to KFAN's fan line. They put out like they take calls from drunk fans after the game. Ron Johnson, former Gopher, and I think he played for the Ravens, maybe a couple other teams in the NFL. He's on KFAN quite a bit. But he made a point about KJ that KJ, at this point, is kind of your number 4 receiver. And not wide receiver, but if JJ's healthy, he's 1. Jordan Addison, he is proving to be number 2. And KJ thought he was going to be number 2 coming in the season. Number 3, I think, is still TJ. And you could, I think, argue prior to the Monday night game, TJ and JJ were your 1 and 2. And there's a lot of blank J names, so.
Right.
So it goes, JJ, Jordan Addison, TJ, and then who's that 4th? It's going to be KJ, but now Brandon Powell, he's playing well. And that's probably where it ends. I mean, you got a couple other guys behind him, but that's probably the hierarchy of receiving players. I know TJ's a tight end,
but still, you're catching passes.
Mm-hmm.
You're a receiver. We haven't talked at all about the running game.
What is there to talk about?
I mean, from a statistical perspective, there wasn't a lot of production, but I do feel like the yards they gained were big yards.
Yeah.
When we needed them, Cam Akers and Alexander Mattison both had some big gash plays. I mean, first play of the game, Alexander Mattison rushes for what, 12, 15 yards
19
or something
yards.
like that?
I think 19.
Was it 19?
It was 19, and I think that's his long for the season because the Vikings still don't have a 20-yard rush or a rushing touchdown.
And again, bottom line, that needs to improve. But when we needed yards, we got them from both of those guys. And not just those two, but Ty Chandler came in late in the game and got us some yards too.
Yeah,
which
I'm pretty
was
sure
great.
Ty Chandler, he had 2 big plays, and one of them was called back on that weird illegal contact or whatever they called it. I think it was against KJ. Or maybe it was offensive pass interference. It was a big play. Chandler gained a bunch of yards, and then it was all called back. But then a few plays later, I don't know if it was Chandler. I think it might have been Akers that had a big play to kind of get back to where they were. But, yeah.
Anyways, I guess the point I'm trying to make is, there's still a lot of room to grow in the run game. I think there's a high ceiling, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't think we've seen the best of our run game, and I
hope
think
not.
I think the offensive line starting to figure it out and starting to block better for Kirk might develop into a better run game, and that's kind of backwards because you want to maybe develop the run game first, and then use that play action and things like that to develop the pass game. But I don't know. In today's NFL, it's a pass first league. The Vikings are definitely a pass-first team.
Absolutely.
Which is fine, and I think we've got the pieces to do that. But, gosh, if we can get that running game going as well, this offense could be unstoppable.
And I think the first thing you do is you swap running back 1 and running back 2. I think Cam Akers just keeps proving that. I mean, sure, maybe being RB1 is a little bit of an overstatement, but he needs more touches. He is earning the football more than he's getting it. So I think you need to see him more. And maybe, I mean, he's been on the team as long as Dalton Reisner has. Week 2 or 3 they traded for him. So like some other guys, Alex Madison's been here for 5 years, So maybe he's still learning and figuring it out, but Akers needs to be playing more. He needs to get more touches. He's definitely more of an elusive guy, more of a receiving back too when you need it. We've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think Alex Madison, he is that RB2. He is the change of pace running back, and that is where he excels. And he can do good with a spot start here and there, but I don't think his play style and his abilities, they don't equate to being running back number 1. I saw a funny tweet, and again, I don't remember who said it, but it was something to the tune of like, I believe Alex Madison is a really good dude, and he, is very vocal about a lot of good causes, and I think he's just overall a really great guy and a good teammate. I also believe he shouldn't be playing as much as he is right now. And I think I liked that tweet. I should find out who tweeted that.
But that there might be some truth to that. And again, you don't want to like rag on a guy too much. And I would probably agree. I think he is a good guy, and I think he's a good player.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to put your better players in, and if Cam Akers is better, even if Ty Chandler's better, I mean, you gotta roll with them. I don't know if Ty Chandler's better than Alexander Mattison.
I don't know if I'd go that far. But also,
it's a conversation, maybe.
Yeah, one thing needs to change. They need to figure something out as in the red zone as far as rushing goes. They still don't have a rushing touchdown, which, I mean, that's not the most important stat. Winning is. But, like, if you can't rely on rushing the ball within the 5-yard line, at least to get some yards, hopefully a touchdown, then that puts a lot of strain on the passing game.
Well, it was really telling when they decided to try the tush push twice in a row and failed twice in a row, with Kirk trying to just sneak it into the end zone instead of handing it off to one of the backs. Like, give it to a guy, let the play develop in front of you, and see if he can leap over or see if he can get shifty and find a gap and get in. Instead, you just try to push your 38-year-old. 30. How old is he? 36, 38?
Kirk?
Yeah.
Pretty sure he's 35.
35. All right. I was a little off. But still, try to push your a little older quarterback into the end zone instead of relying on your younger, quicker, maybe more athletic backs to get into the end zone.
And I like the tush push play. I think it's an effective play when you have the body styles and the skills to be able to run that play. And I love the Vikings, but they're not the team built for that play. I mean, the Eagles are obviously the team built for that play when Jalen Hurts is built the way he is and when that offensive line just attacks the defensive line. And you have
arguably the league's best center in Jason Kelce.
Right, who just they have it figured out, and good for them.
Right.
And I really hope the NFL doesn't ban that play because one team is so good at it, because I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just the Vikings aren't very good at it. And maybe they use that to their advantage, make it look like they're going to tush push and then actually, step back really quick and dump it off to a tight end who runs for 1 yard and turns around. I don't know.
Or give it to the fullback.
My gosh, yeah. Oh, that's another thing Ron Johnson was saying on Fanline too. You got CJ Ham, who maybe this is his last year. They kind of really made it. They hyped it up in the offseason.
He's been really uninvolved this year.
And Ron Johnson said it too. Like, you got CJ Ham. He's really good. And if I was CJ Ham, I'd be happy to collect $2 million or whatever he's making this year to play 3, 5, 7 snaps a game. Austin, I don't want that because CJ Ham is a good player. I also don't want, we've seen games where, for whatever reason, CJ Ham seems to be like the number one target for receiver. And it's not just like a dump down play. It's like they designed it that way for the 5th time. Like, why is CJ Ham so involved? But I think there's some in between. Give him a play or two. Let him be the quote unquote tush push rusher and go from there. Yeah,
well, and that I formation look that they sometimes put him in at the goal line, we've seen it. I mean, he'll be that fullback with a tailback behind him, and you got a lot of options there. You can tush push, you can hand it off to him, you can fake the handoff to him and hand it off to the tailback. You can pitch it to the tailback and go outside and try to get in, on the side somewhere. There's a lot of options, and I would have loved to have seen that in one of those tush push plays that we tried back to back that failed miserably.
There was something weird about that second one.
The second one, I think Garrett Bradbury technically false started because I think one of the Niners defenders swatted the ball or went after the ball when it was still on the ground before it was snapped, and that caused Bradbury to knee-jerk reaction a little bit, and then no one else on the line moved because Kirk hadn't signaled for the ball to come to him. And it just kind of turned into this disaster of a play.
Yeah,
and I think it backed him up.
Turn into a turnover,
right? But it backed him up 5 yards, and that's I think that drive that fizzled out, and we had to kick a field goal.
Yeah, that was I think the first. There were 2 of those, and I think that was the first one. But
anyways, you said it. The Eagles have the players to make that play and to convert on that play 9 times out of 10 or 9.5 times out of 10. And the Vikings are a team that can maybe do that 6 times out of 10 or 7 times out of 10 maybe. We're a C average when it comes to that scenario. Yeah, we can do it sometimes, but we're not going to do it every time. And gosh, when it's a really big moment, Monday Night Football, we're probably not going to do it.
Yep. And thank the Lord. Again, thank the Lord it didn't end up mattering.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, man.
We've been talking for a while.
Yeah. What do we got next week? We got the Packers.
Yep.
We're going to Lambeau.
At Lambeau, yep.
And the Packers, did you look it up? Were the Packers on bye last week?
They were.
They were.
Yeah, if I read what I'm looking at right, yes, they were. And they've lost 3 in a row.
Yep. So they've got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, too. Could be a quote-unquote trap game, and I don't know if you can have a trap game as a 3-4 team. But even if it wasn't, the Vikings always play the Packers well. They always have.
It's the border battle.
Yeah, and the Packers, they're going to come too. Like, they're going to be ready to play.
Yep.
And it's in Lambeau. I mean, I don't know. It'll be a tough game.
Jordan Love is nowhere close to Kirk Cousins in terms of quarterback production.
No, and he shouldn't be. I mean, this is his first season. He's not a rookie. He's been in the league
Couple
3 years.
Yeah.
But it's his first time being the guy. And I think this was another Ron Johnson observation. Apparently all my football takes are Ron Johnson takes. But Jordan Love, he's been kind of a culprit of underthrowing his receivers a lot this year. And he said something, Ron Johnson said something to the tune of, Love's got a cannon for an arm. He can throw it a mile. But his line hasn't been up to par. He's had to make some quick decisions, maybe some uneasy decisions. So he's throwing the ball really quick and not always in the best timing and the best area. And if the Vikings defensive line can play the way they did against the Niners, hopefully you can do what you did to Brock Purdy to Jordan Love.
Brock Purdy is in concussion protocol.
I saw that.
Right
and I saw a tweet. It was like an overhead video. And I think Brock Purdy tried to quarterback sneak it or jump in. And I think Jordan Hicks and Purdy collided with their helmets in the middle after that quarterback sneak.
I didn't see that.
And the tweet said this could have been when those symptoms started.
Sure. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Going back to the Packers game, though, I was looking at the injury report, and I think this has changed since I looked at it last, but Darnell Savage and Jair Alexander are both were on the injury report. I don't know if they practiced today or not. But those are 2 big names for the Packers. The Vikings offense is starting to click. We've got Jordan Addison, who had his coming out party. He now has 6 touchdowns and leads all rookie receivers.
Yeah.
By a mile.
And I think he's only behind Tyreek Hill in touchdown receptions in the league.
I mean, he's up there. So who do the Packers kind of tap on the shoulder and say, step up? This is your chance.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be tough for them.
I don't even know any other Packers
I think I can
defenders.
only name one other Packer defender, and that's Stokes, right? Their first round pick from a couple years ago. I don't even know if he's healthy. I don't know anything about him. I should know more, but they're the Packers. They're irrelevant this year. Who cares? But if we see the same Vikings offense we saw a couple of nights ago, this could get ugly. And yeah, you mentioned Addison. Obviously, the Niners Monday night game, that was his breakout game. But he's had some good games. I think 2 games ago he had like 38 yards, but he started off looking good and then just didn't get a ton of attempts after that. But he's looked good outside of that Monday night game, which only tells you it's there. I mean, even as the number 1 guy, he can still find the holes and carve it up and figure out how to get his yards. So look for him to have a good game. I would expect him to have another good-looking game. Maybe not 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, but hopefully something close. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else on the Packers front?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not too well versed on the Packers this year. It's the first time you're seeing the Packers without Rodgers as the quarterback one, ever since the year he was injured. But that'll be a change. That'll be nice to see. Maybe they won't get all of the calls that they usually get from the refs with Aaron Rodgers there. One thing you're not going to get is Rodgers is savvy. He knew when to snap the ball because he counted 12 defenders out there real quick. And he knew
how to play the hard count game and get them to jump off sides. And
not saying Jordan Love isn't savvy, because he's probably been watching Rodgers and probably is a little bit better off than most first starting year quarterbacks.
Sat in all those meetings with Rodgers for how many years?
But he's still not Rodgers. Like, I hope we don't have a back-to-back-to-back handoff to Hall of Fame quarterbacks for the Packers. Doesn't seem like it so far, but yeah. I think I saw a tweet. This is the first time since 91 that the Vikings are going to play against the Packers without Rodgers or Favre being their quarterback one. Now, granted, you did have that one injury year.
Right.
So outside of that, since
the
1991,
Vikings were the one to injure Aaron Rodgers in the first place.
So I don't remember too much about that. That may have been, I think that was the first Packer game that year that happened. But yeah, kind of crazy. Basically, our entire lifetime, Vikings have gone up against the Packers when they've had one of two guys.
Yep.
And
that changes.
It'll feel good to see a different guy out there.
Yeah, agreed. I also noticed, I didn't watch anything in its entirety, but just in highlights and kind of in some like flipping back and forth, seeing some red zone stuff on NFL Network. LaFleur's kind of hot-headed right now. Like,
well, you would be too.
This season's been frustrating for him, and he's been at moments been very vocal and frustrated, visibly frustrated on the sideline. And so I don't know. I think there's a little bit of uneasiness in Green Bay right now. I think there's a little bit of, this isn't how we're used to things going, and that's uncomfortable for them. So again, that's a benefit for the Vikings in a lot of ways, to walk into Lambeau knowing that they're not uber confident in what's going to happen. And there's at least a shot. I'd say there's more than at least a shot. There's definitely a shot for the Vikings to.
I almost expect them to win, but that's such a tough thing to say.
Yeah.
You mentioning LaFleur being frustrated. I think back to a few years ago, a previous job that I had. There was one person in the organization that did a lot of things by themselves, so much so that a lot of things ran smoothly, and nobody knew that they ran smoothly because this one person took it upon themselves to just do a bunch of things, and they were good at it, so things got done. Well, that one person got a different position in another organization, and he knew that about himself, that there's a lot of things that are the ball is going to be dropped in a lot of different areas if I don't speak up. So he had a meeting with every team leader in that organization and said, hey, this is relevant to you guys. I do this, this, and this. You guys are going to have to do those things. This is relevant to you guys. I do this, this, and this. You guys will need to pick this up. Just letting everybody know everything that I do so the balls aren't dropped. Aaron Rodgers probably did a lot of things, obviously, pre-snap and everything, but even during the week, he probably did a ton of things that nobody really knew, or everybody kind of took for granted. Maybe LaFleur is noticing, crap, this thing didn't get done. We didn't prepare this way. Darn it, Aaron did that all the time.
He just knew, we weren't prepared for the defense to give us this look, and we weren't prepared for an audible at the line. Aaron just did it.
Yeah.
And now I've got to teach this young kid how to have those instincts that Aaron just had.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's the case, but it would make sense to me if that was the case.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It'll be an interesting game. It'll be interesting to see this kind of resurging Vikings team against kind of a ragtag Packers team, so to speak. And they're injured. They're hurting right now. Not just the secondary guys that I mentioned, but like even Aaron Jones. I've got him on my fantasy team, and he's been kind of in and out the last couple of weeks. He played this last week. I started him, and he only got me like 7 points. So wasn't great.
And probably not much better than Madison.
True. But, I mean, he's Aaron Jones. He should be producing a little bit more than that.
I think so.
It'll all remain to be seen Sunday at noon at Lambeau.
Can't wait.
Hopefully we get it around here. I mean, in Iowa, you never know.
We do. I saw the, 506 Sports. They put out their maps today. Today being Wednesday, and we are in the geographical area that gets that game.
And I think that's largely because it's the Packers, not the Vikings.
Yeah, but maybe that script could flip. If the Vikings turn it around, our area, the number one team that we get is maybe the Bears.
Our area expands.
Yeah, or just moves around a little bit. We usually get the Bears over anybody else, but then it's like the Bears or the Packers. But the Packers start deep diving and going the wrong way. Maybe the Vikings can steal some more of those games locally in our area.
I get the Bears. We're 3 hours from Chicago.
Oh, yeah. We are in the Bears geographical area.
We're only 4 hours from the Twin Cities. So 4.5, maybe.
I think we're like closer to 6 hours. You have moved in the last couple of years.
True.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, all right. You're probably right.
Yeah, I think we're about 5.5 to 6 hours from
You're right.
From the cities.
I was thinking I still lived 2 hours north of here.
Yeah, you don't.
Which I don't.
Thankfully, you don't anymore.
Yeah, we can do this.
Yeah.
Which is fun. And we're going to do it again next week.
Yeah. So where can people reach out to us?
The Skol Hop.
The Skol Hop.
Just type it into the search bar. The Skol Hop.
Yep.
You'll find us.
We've got Twitter or X, which is at the Skol Hop. We have Instagram, which is the same thing, at the Skol Hop. Facebook is just the Skol Hop. We recently started a TikTok account. Evan's been making some cool superficial words on top of iconic Vikings plays videos. And we put out one. Our most successful video so far is the Addison end of first half stealing the touchdown away play, which is pretty cool. But hopefully we'll start to put some more stuff out on there. We are dabbling in video recording the podcast, so that opens up YouTube or Twitch or other areas where you can watch us. We'll tell you guys about that. So keep an eye out. But until then, make sure Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, reach out to us.
The old faithfuls.
The old
ones
faithfuls
that have been there forever.
For sure. We're probably more active on Twitter just because that's what I'm more active on. But yeah, reach out to us anyway. I'd really like this TikTok thing to open up a little bit more. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
All right. All that being said, Ev, this Kinship Amber Lager, what'd you think?
Well, I'm at the end of my second one, and it was awesome.
There's some like holes in here. This is just going down too easy.
It was good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot too. I like ambers. They're not my favorite, but this one's really good. Thank you, Kinship.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got the Packers game next week, and then we'll break down the Falcons game coming up as well on the next episode. Yeah, I don't think there's much else to say. We've talked this thing to death.
Well, until next week, Ev.
Skol.
Skol.